All right, guys, we're back with some more fantasy baseball content. And here I have my last starting pitcher rankings of the season. I have 65, 66 technically starting pitchers I'm going to name and talking about how you should be viewing them for the rest of the season. So part of this is just objectively ranking these guys as pitchers, but also a lot of this analysis is coming from schedules, who they're going to face in their final 2 or 3 starts. That's really important. With so few starts remaining, who someone's pitching against is almost as important of how good a pitcher they are. But first, I want to thank you guys for supporting this channel all season. Also remind you guys of open memberships up for the channel right down there next to the subscribe button on your desktop browser. $3.99 a month, and you can get personalized fantasy advice. Ask me directly, I'll answer you directly. Also, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so. And again, just like I announced last week, I have a new channel, new project I'm working on. It's called The Wind Up, a general baseball channel. Going to be uploading there much more consistently, making great content over there with my good friend Mark Luino. You guys might know him as Giraffe Neck Mark. So if you guys want the link for some of those videos, those are in the description as well. But all right, now let's get into it. So tier 1 pitchers, pretty obvious. Tarik Skubal. Recorded this Friday before Skubal pitched. I know he got hurt. Really scared of the side injury. Injuries like that kind of make me think his regular season might be over. But of course, keep checking for updates. Paul Skeens, Garrett Crochet. Not really going to talk much about these guys because they're just in your lineups no matter what, not really thinking about anything. Same with the tier 2 starters here. You got Hunter Green, Logan Gilbert, Chris Sale, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, Jacob deGrom, Hunter Brown, Brian Wu, and Blake Snell. Green, I have in the top of this, but again, if these guys are in a tier, they're all pretty close. That's why they're in a tier together. He's looked so good coming off the injured list. Chris Sales looked really good coming off the injured list. This is another tier of guys where there's just no doubt whatsoever who they are. They're in your lineups. Matchups don't matter. They brought you here, and hopefully they're bringing you home to a championship. Kind of the same for the tier 3 pitchers as well. This is the first time we're going to start to think about, consider schedules a little bit. But again, these are all must-start guys who are never, ever, ever, ever getting anywhere close to being out of your lineup. In tier 3, we have Tyler Glasnow, Christopher Sanchez, Max Fried, Joe Ryan, Pablo Lopez, Logan Webb, Framber Valdez, and Freddie Peralta. We've seen Glasnow also, the Dodgers do some weird stuff with him where he got skipped for some back stiffness, and he came back against the Rockies as best start of the season. Sanchez has been an absolute menace all season long, but the strikeout upside keeps him off of tier 2 into tier 3. He's going to be a really fun guy to rank next year. Max Fried's also moved down from tier 2 to tier 3 over the last few months. It just has been a really up and down second half for them. The strikeouts have kind of faded a little bit. This is probably a pretty fair ranking of who he is as a pitcher. I know a lot of us want to believe that he's a Cy Young contender, but realistically, he's probably just more of a pitcher that's just outside the top 10 than really inside of it. Also, briefly, want to talk about the 2 twins on this list. First, Joe Ryan has been one of my favorites all season, has really carried me in a lot of the leagues, but what we've seen with Ryan at the end of this year, something we saw with Ryan at the end of last year. Last year, he missed the last month of the season with injury. This year, he's tailed off a teeny tiny bit. So it's just not the same ace that we saw for the first few months. And Pablo Lopez, back from his teres major strain in his shoulder, he's been good off the IL. So I'm really trusting Pablo Lopez again in these top 3 tiers as an absolute must-start guy, fantasy championship. Then the first guy whose schedule I want to bring to your attention, Logan Webb. His next 2 starts are going to come against the Dodgers. So I go, you're still starting Logan Webb. He's still a dude, but just be aware you're getting 2 starts against the Dodgers from Logan Webb through the end of the season. A little scary about that. And then, of course, Framber and Freddie to close this out. Just really slightly inconsistent on a start-by-start basis, but then you look back across the entire season, they're guys you're really, really happy were on your team. Okay, now we're moving on to tier 4. Still guys that I consider pretty close to must-start dudes. The schedules come a little bit more into play here, but I've also kind of pushed up and pushed down guys in this tier list based on how their schedules are the rest of the season. That's going to play into these rankings as we move forward. But now here's the tier 4 pitchers. You got Shota Imanaga, Carlos Rodon, Brandon Woodruff, Nick Pivetta, Ranger Suarez, Nolan McLean, love my Mets, baby, and Michael King. So Michael King's really the one guy who I was kind of questioning putting in this tier, but I also just know the pitcher he is and I've seen that. It's just all the question of health, and he came back off the injured list, was kind of good, not that great, kind of wonky. He's the one guy I'm kind of uncomfortable about with this tier, but just get to the ones I want to mention now, single out importantly from this tier. Carlos Rodon next week has a 2-start week against the Twins and the Orioles. That's awesome. That's a must-start guy. That's one that we hope can really push us forward in a championship matchup. The same goes for Brandon Woodruff. Good schedule the rest of the season. He's facing off against the Cardinals twice. That Cardinals offense is pitiful right now. So bad. He's someone to trust. Pavetta's been an ace all season. Ranger Suarez has been an ace all season. But now Nolan McLean. He's been so good since coming up for the Mets about a month ago now. Just an amazing pitch mix, 6 deep with a sinker that is plus drop, an incredible damage suppressor that he can throw 95, 96, up to 97 miles an hour. A ridiculous sweeper that's already one of the best in baseball. A great curveball that has similar amount of horizontal horizontal movement as that sweeper, but a lot more drop that tunnels well. That acts as one really difficult decision for both right-handed and left-handed batters to decide if they're going to swing at that pitch. A changeup that's getting better, and a color that he's willing to mix in on occasion, plus a four-seam fastball. He has everything right now. Even ranking him at 25th here in the 4th tier, I feel like I'm being a little bit low on how good Nolan McLain is. And he's even getting a bump because his starts through the rest of the season, as scheduled, are against the Texas Rangers, completely injury-riddled lineup, the Washington Nationals, and the Miami Marlins. Nolan McLain is a guy, if you were lucky enough to get him up off your waiver wire, he's someone that's been a really big piece over the last month, and over these next 2 weeks, he can be someone that totally swings championships. Okay, now moving on to tier 5, this is the last group of pitchers that I would basically consider must-start guys over the next 2 weeks. The guys who I'm really not taking out my lineup. Some guys, again, I've pushed up onto this tier, who objectively, I may not believe to actually be in this tier just because the matchups are so good. Also, one guy in this tier who the matchups are bad, but I'm still willing to trust. But now, getting into this group, it's Jacob Misiorowski, Shane Bieber, Matthew Boyd, George Kirby, Merrill Kelly, Kevin Gausman, Cade Horton, Trevor Rogers, and Kyle Bradish. Misiorowski himself and this Brewers team have one of the easiest schedules remaining for the rest of the season. His remaining starts line up to be against the Cardinals, and the Reds. That's amazing. And also, we're kind of expecting the Brewers to start dialing everybody's workloads back a little bit, especially Misiorowski, as they lock everything up. But also, we just saw Misiorowski get over 100 pitches. That was kind of the only thing stopping him through these summer months from being considered a top 30 or so starting pitcher in fantasy baseball. Now that he has that, it seems like the Brewers are kind of happy to have him stretched out because they want him to be something like a horse in these playoff series. So really great to see Misiorowski kind of go through a bit of a rough patch through August and then also come out the back of it, pitching deeper into games than he has all season, now with that beautiful schedule to close it out. Another guy from this list with an amazing schedule to close out the season is Matthew Boyd. One of the most unsung heroes of fantasy baseball this season. Boyd's been a revelation for the Cubs, just totally steadying the middle of that rotation. As I'm recording this right now, he's facing the Tampa Bay Rays, and he's scheduled to face the Pirates, then the Mets, which is kind of not a great matchup, but also the Mets have not been hitting at all recently, and then the Cardinals to end the season. Overall, it's a lot of good stuff for Matthew Boyd, and someone that we've just learned to trust all year, so we have to keep doing it. Shane Bieber also is in this group. I know he just had not that good of a start after a pretty good one coming off the injured list. All the stuff looks amazing, though. The fastball velocity's back. The breaking balls are moving the way we want them to. He's pitching deeply in the games. He's fully built up. I'm probably a little bit higher than consensus right now on Shane Bieber. Just because of everything I've seen from him, it looks like something kind of close to vintage Bieber. Not like vintage Cy Young Bieber, but this kind of Shane Bieber who we expect to be one of at least the better pitchers in the league. 2 other schedule callouts from this tier, then a couple other notes, but these schedule calls for a different reason. First of all, Cade Horton. Like I said, Matthew Boyd. The Cubs have a very, very easy remaining schedule. He's lined up for matchups against the Pirates, the Reds, and the Cardinals. That's ridiculous. Also, statistically, he's been like the best pitcher in baseball in second half with an ERA and a whip both under 1. He's been great. He was a big shout out in one of my waiver wire videos in like the middle of August, and he's really cashed in on what I said about him. At the same time, he does not have the same strikeout upside as a lot of guys listed ahead of him. So be mindful of that, but he's not letting runs in. He puts himself in great position to win every single game, and these matchups are super easy. You're probably also not getting many quality starts out of Horton. The Cubs like to limit his workload, but he's kind of become a dude. I really like watching him pitch. But another guy in this list, Trevor Rogers. I accidentally called him Tyler Rogers in my last video because of, Mets brain, but he's got some bad matchups to close out the season. He's facing the Toronto Blue Jays and then the Yankees. We're trusting him because he's been so good, but those are scary lineups to face. Something to keep in mind if you have like a split decision between Trevor Rogers and someone else who I've kind of already named on this list. And also just some notes for other guys in this tier. George Kirby, I know it's been bad lately, but we're still seeing a version of George Kirby that's pretty good, not great, willing to trust. You kind of got to trust him at this point in the season. Kevin Gausman should do a complete game shutout on Thursday. It's amazing what that guy's done this season, kind of proving all the doubters wrong and putting himself back in the spot of being considered a high-end starter in Major League Baseball. And Kyle Bradish, I can't believe how good Kyle Bradish has been since coming off the injured list. I kind of poo-pooed him, brushed him off, but these last couple starts, the breaking balls are back, the velocity's back, and he's added a lot more vertical movement on his fastball. 2 extra inches of induced vertical break, getting a lot more life on that pitch, more confidently throwing it in the strike zone, especially against left-handed batters. It's amazing. And while I just said Trevor Rogers, his teammate, has a bad schedule coming up, Bradish is slightly off kilter on that schedule. He gets a nice matchup against Chicago White Sox to start what should be a 2-start week next week. That also might change. They might move him up a day to pitch on Sunday, but I think they'll probably give Bradish, fresh off the Tommy John surgery, an extra day of rest. He'll get that Monday White Sox matchup and be someone that we can really, really count on in the championship week. Okay, now moving on here to tier 6. This is when things start to get dicey. This is when you have to start really thinking about whether or not you're going to want to start these guys. It just becomes a bit more of a decision. I'm not telling you not to start guys as we keep moving down this list, but you just got to give a little more careful consideration to it. So in this tier, we have Drew Rasmussen, Spencer Strider, Quinn Priester, Robbie Ray, Andrew Abbott, Sonny Gray, and Jonah Tong. Drew Rasmussen has been amazing, one of the best pitchers in baseball all season, very consistently. He had that kind of little lapse in the middle when the Rays were limiting his workload, but he's come back from that and been the exact same guy we always expected. That being said, he has one of the most difficult remaining schedules for any pitcher in the league. He's pitching in Chicago right now while I'm recording this video, and then he pitches against the Blue Jays twice. That's rough. I still trust Drew Rasmussen. He's been the one Rays starting pitcher this year to kind of combat how bad that whole pitching staff has been at home, but I'm a little bit nervous. I even reluctantly benched Drew Rasmussen in one of my leagues this week. He hasn't made the start against the Cubs yet, so I don't really know. But it was just a situation where I had another pitcher I thought was a better option. And actually, in this case, it was Slade Ciccone, who had that near no-hitter on Monday. So I went with the 2-start week Ciccone with one really good matchup against the Royals over the one Rasmussen start with not so good of a matchup against the Cubs. Those are the kind of split decisions you have to make this time of year. I think it may have worked out, but we haven't seen the weekend yet, so I really don't know yet. Here's another guy where a difficult decision is going to have to be made, Spencer Strider. I know it's been really bad over the second half of the season. I no longer trust him at all, whatsoever. No way. We saw the strikeouts dip. We saw the strikeouts rise a teeny tiny bit recently, and this week, in most of your guys' championships, he's going to have a 2-start week against the Nationals and the Tigers. That's a decision I don't really want to make. I'm going to have to make that decision in a few leagues. I'm probably just going to blindly start him because he's got a 2-start week. But also the Braves have kind of continued to push Strider back a lot over the last few weeks. He'll have a start that's showing early in the week, and then the Braves will move him back a day or two, and he'll wind up losing the 2-start week. So scary to me. The fact that first start is the Nationals, that makes it a little bit better because that lineup sucks. But I'm mortified about the Spencer Strider decisions I'm going to have to make this coming Sunday. Quinn Priester's in this tier as well. He doesn't have that same super easy schedule the other Brewers I've mentioned has, but he is pitching against the Angels this week. That's a great matchup for Priester, even though through the last month, his strikeouts have dried up a bit and his walks have kind of ballooned. There's always kind of the fear with a guy like Priester, who's not exactly overpowering, doesn't really have a great fastball or a really superb out pitch he can lean on, but just kind of gets by with look and feel. And he's a good pitcher, but again, he's someone that you could easily get like a 5-inning, 5-strikeout, 4-walk game kind of any day of the week. Now just moving on to the rest of this tier, Robbie Ray, he's got a 2-start week this week against the Diamondbacks and the Dodgers. That's terrifying. Best of luck to anyone doing that. I'm going to do that myself in a few leagues. I don't know what's going to happen there. Also, if you guys do play through the last week of the season, Robbie Ray likely will have a home start against the Colorado Rockies. We'll probably strike out 12 guys, 7 innings. But that Dodger start, I'm staring at it. I'm scared about it. He's got one this weekend, too. I'm scared about both of them. I don't know what's going to happen. You got Andrew Abbott, too. Just had a really good start against the Padres after a real dip during August. He probably will have matchups against the Cubs and Brewers to end the season. And there's a Reds team that's going to be absolutely gunning, trying to make the playoffs. They're going to be pushing these guys, which is a good thing for us fantasy, but I am a little bit nervous about those matchups to close out the season. Last two guys in this tier, Sonny Gray. Super inconsistent, still getting strikeouts, but that Cardinals team just kind of stinks right now. It's kind of gross, the whole thing. I still trust Sonny Gray, but I've just had to move him down this list because of inconsistencies. Tier 7 keeps getting weird, but a lot of tough decisions to be made in this tier. We have Shohei Ohtani, the pitcher, Nick Lodolo, Cam Schlittler, Hurston Waldrep, Sandy Alcantara, Emmett Sheehan, Dylan Cease, and Connolly Early, new starting pitcher on the Red Sox, rookie. Can't wait to talk about him. But for Shohei, the stuff is totally back. He looks completely disgusting. It's just a workload thing. If the Dodgers were willing to let him go 6 or 7 innings ever, he'd probably be like 18th on this list, 20th on this list. But the fact that he has not a high chance to qualify for wins and almost a 0 chance to qualify for quality starts, it just hurts him. You got to think about all these things this time of year. Talent just can't be the only thing driving these decisions. Nick Lodolo is another guy on this list whose schedule is going to hurt them a lot. He's going to Sacramento, then he's a start against the Cubs, and to close out the season, he could either be starting against the Pirates or against the Brewers. Huge difference there. It just kind of winds up how the Reds shuffle their rotation that last week of the season. It's a week out, so we're not going to be able to know, but that at Sacramento and at Chicago Cubs, that really hurts him in a ranking like this because I don't know how badly I want to start Nick Lodolo, inconsistent, off the injured list in either of those two matchups. Same thing kind of goes for Cam Schlittler. He was really good. Then he had a very poor start last week against the Blue Jays. Still strikes guys out though, still gets tons of swings and misses, still has an overpowering fastball. And as it's lined up right now, the Yankees having a 7-game week, he should have a 2-start week against the Twins and then the Orioles. That's one really good matchup, one not so good matchup. The 2-start week for a guy like Schlittler, that's probably a must start, but again, some of the inconsistencies make me a little bit nervous. Maybe I'm underrating him a little bit on this list. I still like Schlittler objectively, but there's something about the 2-start week with the last start Sunday and there's just some inconsistencies lately. I don't know. It's kind of putting me off the scent just a tad, but I'd probably still be willing to start him. Hurston Waldrep and the Braves, one of my favorites from the channel the second half of the season. Got 2 start against the Nationals coming up after one against the Astros this week, so pretty great schedule for Waldrep, but that Astros start, teeny tiny bit scary for a guy whose strikeouts again have gone down while the walks have gone up just a bit. And then to close out this list, the actual firm top 50, Sandy Alcantara has been hot. Emmett Sheehan's been great. Really, really huge second half performance for the Dodgers. Going to be part of their playoff rotation. Dylan Cease, it never came. It just never happened back. It might happen back in the start on Friday night. that's happening in between the recording of this and the posting of this, but it's crazy disappointing second half for Dylan Cease in fantasy. And lastly, Connolly Early, one of the best major league debuts I could remember. 11 strikeouts in 5 innings in a really tough place to pitch in Sacramento. The stuff looked amazing. So many different weapons at his disposal from the left side with an incredible slider tying the whole thing together as the out pitch. He's awesome. The Red Sox have really done some special things with their player development in the last few years, and Early just kind of seems like another big success story from that program. Now, 5 guys I want to mention. Nothing really discernible about their schedules. Also, guys who have been really inconsistent. I don't really trust, but I had to put them on there. Yuri Perez, Yu Darvish, Bryce Miller, Max Scherzer, Luis Castillo. So this kind of half. The Unk still got it here, but also have some young guys who are showing me a lot. Yuri was so good. He's been bad. It would make sense. He's running out of gas coming off Tommy John surgery. Yu Darvish, similarly, it's just, I don't know what Yu Darvish we're getting week in and week out, but sometimes if you got to trust a veteran like Yu Darvish. Bryce Miller also good, but kind of inconsistent. Not great since coming off the injured list. Max Scherzer has been pretty good. Then the Yankees stole a bunch of his signs. He didn't have a good start in the Bronx, but still a fine pitcher. Luis Castillo, I'm starting him at home. That's kind of just about the idea with Castillo right now. Now, these last 2 tiers, want to shout out 5 guys specifically in each. First with really good schedules, then guys with really bad schedules. So guys with good schedules, Aaron Nola against the Royals, the Diamondbacks, and the Twins. Those are 3 very bad offenses right now, 3 great matchups for him. Jack Flaherty facing the Cleveland Guardians this week. I do not like Flaherty very much, but starting against the Guardians, I'm always in for that. Jose Quintana, along with a bunch of those Brewers with great schedules, getting the Angels, the Cardinals, and the Reds to end the season. In a deep league, you could really do worse than a Jose Quintana start, just grinding you through 6 innings and probably getting a win because the Brewers are probably going to win the game. Brandon Sproat, the 3rd Mets rookie to debut this month and looked pretty good, does not have the same strikeout stuff as Tong or McLean. He also didn't give up a hit for 5 1/3 innings in his debut against the Reds. He's facing the Rangers today when you guys are watching this at home, then the Nationals, then the Marlins to close out the season. And then Bubba Chandler. I know he just gave up 9 runs and got lit on fire, but he kind of just got singled to death in that one, and he has starts against the Nationals and the Athletics at home to end the season. So those are good matchups. The list of guys are good matchups. You're probably not considering them in 10-team leagues unless you have 1 pitcher slot remaining, but deeper leagues, 12, 14, 16, you're thinking about those guys sharply. And now, I want to shout out 5 guys who probably would have made this top 50 list, but have bad schedules coming up. And that is Ryan Nelson, who's facing the Phillies and then the Dodgers after a really good start against the Twins. So we love that start against the Twins. Hate the ones against the Phillies and Dodgers. Ryan Pepiot, weird injury thing that just pushed him back, and now he's lined up to face the Blue Jays and the Red Sox in Fenway Park, which we do not love. Jesus Luzardo against the Dodgers this week. I don't want to deal with Luzardo in those situations. Shane Baz, Blue Jays, Orioles, Blue Jays. Baz has been very consistent this year. I really don't want to be on the wrong side of the next blow-up in my fantasy championship. Then you got Brian Bayo. Starts against the Yankees, in Tampa Bay against the Rays. Tough place to pitch. And then Toronto Blue Jays. Not a good run of games for Bayo. The last guy I just want to mention briefly, just want to say his name, Cole Ragans. The Royals are doing everything they can to get that last wildcard spot. Ragans has been looking really good in his rehab stint. It seems like he's going to try and make a few starts, and the Royals are definitely going to let him just blow it out. Just do whatever he can out there, pitch as much as he can to get them to the playoffs. But thank you guys so much. That's it. The last pitching rankings of the regular season. Probably the last video I'm going to post during the regular season. I'm going to start to shift to off-season content after this. Things like the biggest breakouts this season, the most disappointing players this season. Probably do some firm, full position reviews. Talk about where I thought guys were going to be, how some guys wound up, kind of be a little precursor to how these positional previews are going to work for this coming season. But thank you guys all so much for being on this channel all year. It's been a great grind. It's been really fun to do. I think it's helped me as a fantasy baseball player too. I might do a video like that where I do forensics of each of my teams and I walk you guys through like how I thought about my teams and my team management, my team building during the season. Could be a fun idea. Let me know what you guys want to watch, what kind of videos you guys want over the next few months until we get like sharply into draft season in the winter. I'm open for ideas. I'm going to try a bunch of nonsense. So let me know, get in the comments, let me know the kind of stuff you want to see. Thank you guys again for being with me, and I'll see you next time.